This is a force that holds people together and allows actors to coordinate their efforts and work together for mutual benefit. The shared goals harness the combined power of each person's perspective, needs, expertise to create a clear and mutual path towards something what we want to accomplish. And this is where we have seen goal setting, which is tops down, versus shared goals, which allow you to start with buy-in from stakeholders, helping teams to feel engaged and aligned from the beginning. It also means that each person understands the meaning of their work and how it fits into the team's broader vision, which means helping everyone know how their work impacts the project. And this is where I think there is a big shift that is going to happen, which is the notion of meaningful work that each one of us wants to accomplish in our lifetimes. The other important things in this context is, and this is something that is very relevant given where the world economy is today, is that as supply scarcity is putting a pressure on world economy, can there be a collective action in a shared supply chain and matrix of vendors? So this is going to actually be a little bit more disruptive in that context, because we need pool resources from all stakeholders. Today, the brands, the retailers, the manufacturers aren't set up to fund research, program development, and much piloting. They are set up for implementing proven programming. So how do you pool their resource together to move faster and reduce the cost? And so overall cost to implement will be lower. And resource pooling is a age-old phenomena. People have been talking about it, but now given where the world economy is, we will see shrinkages, scarcities in supplies, and so we must pool resources. The third important thing is in this context is affirmative dialogue. So in the world of information overload, we need to find ways for effective engagement and trust that requires that everyone involved is working from a common understanding on the issue, on any issue, and each other's perspective as possible. If participants feel that information is only shared with some members and does not do justice to all perspectives, you are very unlikely to be able to create trust you need for effective and sustainable engagement, especially in the context of completely connected environment we are in, where reviews and reactions are instant. People don't wait for any feedbacks, any reflections, immediate reactions will come. And so how do you solve for that? And then the last three things I just want to add, and this is something that are actually coming on surface. And as leaders, you need to have those insights in terms of how you tackle that. The one is we need to find ways for people to revive lost connections from past. So there is a longevity discussion today in many forums to relive those memories and refresh them for life ahead, whatever we have. So there is a lot of value in those lost relationships that we need in this new brave world, as work and life are transforming at a massive speed. And if we are just losing connections one by one and so forth, it's very, very difficult, because it's going to become very, very transactional in that context. The last 2 points I want to make here is that stresses and setbacks have become an inevitable part of life. The well-being is affected by how we handle daily difficulties, as well as significant hardships and life-changing events. So connections with others can support resilience. And so we need to build new platforms to establish connections with others that can help us to weather storms by providing emotional support. Today, the family that we used to think about in that context is disintegrating. So how do you think about emotional support who can listen, empathize, the instrumental support in terms of providing useful information, the truthful information, so to speak, actively helping out or problem solving, and collective response. People who believe they have access to support tend to see potentially threatening situations as less stressful, making it easier to cope. And my last point here is improve sociability. And this is, again, a very big challenge for leaders of tomorrow. It turns out that the current socioeconomic conditions are bringing social disconnection and has the effect of impairing executive function, the capacity of the brain to control thoughts and impulses. When we suffer from a lack of healthy relationships, we become more impulsive, more anxious, and less emotionally resilient. And these emotional consequences spill over into the physical realm. New approach to social connection would be to share your time, experiences, and stories with people and to also listen to them. Gradually, you will build a group of people in your life who care about you and who you also care about. And thus, both your mind and body will reap the rewards. So with that, this brings me to the end of presentation. I hope these 18 insights across 3 currents will give you some food for thought in your respective roles across organizations. Thanks again.
Thank you, Prashant. That was very insightful. It's very scary, and I think we are in a good place when we look at the advantages of technology. When we look at the risk of it, it's a little scary. We're also looking at flexibility, empowerment, how do we avoid, I like the word digital exhaustion. And a lot of examples came to my mind where I won't share now, but it did come. And collective well-being. Thank you for sharing all these insights with us. This conversation is not complete without a panel discussion. And like Dr. Reddy mentioned, we need like-minded people on the panel. We have today 2 more guests who are here to join us. Let me take this opportunity to introduce them. Ms. Asha Subramaniam is a trusted senior HR professional with a proven track record to helping organizations, be it startups or organizations looking to scale and transform. She is passionate about promoting a people-first, healthy and creative work environment through trust building and open communication. She is a startup HR specialist who can help you evangelize your people's priority with employees and external talent equally. She has worked with companies on strategies such as high volume hiring, technology hiring, career ladder across the board, culture, employee branding, and many more such interventions. Hi, Asha, welcome to the panel.
Hi, Monica. Thanks a lot. And looking forward to the great session.
Thank you, Asha. We have William D. Soros, a performance-driven individual who enjoys challenges and thrives on responsibility. He has 26 plus years of experience in both human resource and training and development. He is resourceful with an unhealthy impatience and has a keen insight into the needs and views of others. His core ability is to listen and identify issues or problem areas and form innovative solutions. Hi, William. Welcome to the panel.
Hi, Monica. Thank you for inviting me to this one. I'm looking forward to a very good discussion with the rest, with Asha, of course, Mohan, Reddy, and Prashant.
You already know of our other 2 speakers. I've already introduced them to you. We have Dr. Reddy and Prashant, who is joining us on our panel discussion. So, Asha, what's your thoughts on our discussion topic, Future of Leadership is Now?
Okay, so quite interesting topic, and would really love to hear from other participants also, and also what I probably feel today is the biggest challenge, right? Any corporate who's facing is leadership, especially the UCA worlds, and also we having the virtual lifestyle, right? With the employees. So how are we going to balance the leadership while we are dealing with people where they are sitting across the regions, right? Or probably in some other country. So leadership surely is a very, very important thing, and also a lot of trainings, a lot of things which are going on, as Dr. Mohan told, learning, unlearning, and relearning. These are something extremely important, Monica, what I feel at this point.
Thank you, Asha. William, what do you think? Let's listen to your insights on this topic.
Well, it's high time. It's always been high time for us to talk about leadership now, especially just after a period of how many years of lockdown. In the Philippines, of course, we've been in lockdown for the last 2 years. Only now that we are easing up, and we've seen a lot of changes. Of course, it was difficult for people to change into a virtual setup, although it also allowed a lot of opportunities for us to reach many people, right? But with that one, it also did come with many challenges, because of course, as I normally refer to us as Asians, we like the human touch. The human touch was lost in a virtual space, unless you're an introvert like me at some point, right? You like working, let's say, within the confines of your own room. However, even introverts tend to be a little bit stressed from time to time, because ultimately you need that not just the human touch, but actually be able to see individuals. And those are the things that was lost, and we're now looking to relearn how do we actually do that in a hybrid workspace now, right? Because most of us are either working from home still, or let's say 50-50 from the office, or vice versa. So I'm also looking forward to hear from the rest. How do we actually pull all of our resources, best practices, so that it helps organizations thrive further, right? And then eventually see how they can actually move towards a certain direction.
Thanks, William. I'd like to throw a question to the panel here, and I'll start with Dr. Reddy. What I was, a friend of mine just sent me a note recently, actually today morning, on moonlighting. And he said there is a gentleman in Bangalore who's working in 7 organizations, moonlighting in 7 organizations. And they just got to know about it, when the PF accounts kind of collided and they were trying to figure out what's happening. So I want to know, what are your thoughts, Dr. Reddy, about moonlighting? Can moonlighting employees be considered hardworking and an asset to the organization? And how do we link it to the performance?
Sure. Good question, Monica. It's very relevant for the current times that you live. You can open a newspaper every morning or get into any of the social media. There is a fairly serious thread that goes on moonlighting. I think Prashant also talked about it at length, that we live in a world at this point of time that one size does not fit all. So therefore, we can't say moonlighting is good or bad. But all the same, we ought to make sure that there are some frameworks that we develop in order to ensure that we don't go beyond the framework. So any organization, whether it's small or big, like Microsoft, or a medium company like us, and so on and so forth, what is absolutely a no-no is working for competition. So that's number one. That's one framework that you have developed. Competition is no-no. They are in doubt, you better ask. Don't go ahead and do it and then say, no, I never thought it to be competition. The second one that we are also trying to say is, you can't be using company resources, because all of them from work from home at this point of time have all the resources with them. It's just not simple laptop. There's a lot more resources that go along with it. Fairly larger amount of software, which is extremely expensive, so these are certain things that we are saying is not possible. And third one is, there cannot be, I repeat, there cannot be a compromise in terms of performance. So therefore, what we are trying to spend more time in terms of writing down the KRAs, actually breaking down into smaller periods of time, making sure that we have, if not a weekly, at least a monthly KRAs that they have to be delivered by people. And thereafter, we are saying, it's up to you what you do. So therefore, to that extent, we show the flexibility. Certainly, yes. I think we got to show that empathy towards people. The current trend is in that mode. So therefore, the sum total I'm saying is, one size does not fit all. We make a framework and make sure that within the framework, people can operate.
Thank you, Dr. Reddy. Prashant, I have a related question on the same. And this is on a recent interview that Wipro Chairman Rishit Premji called moonlighting cheating. Whereas on the other hand, you have the Swiggies and the Zomatos introducing moonlighting policy to their employees for a second job. What is your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I would agree with Dr. Reddy. I think there are two principles here, right? One is anything after contractual hours made using 100% of your own resources is yours, right? At the end of it, we are not in a very closed environment today, right? It's a completely connected, open environment around the world, right? So you have to create boundaries in the context of what resources that are being used and how they are being used and so forth, right? But we can't control their time. The important thing is there are rules against working on products that directly compete for obvious reasons, right? But aside from that, there should not be any real constraints in that context.
Thank you, Prashant.
But Monica,
Asha?
if I may,
Yes.
if I may interrupt you for a few seconds. Please do not compare Zomatos and the Swiggies with the Wipros.
Yes.
So I completely disagree, because you see, these are technology companies. Actually, these are brain intensive companies.
Yes.
We like people to be thinking about their projects all through their time. Whenever they time, they think about their project. They think about innovation. Whereas you look at the Swiggy guy, I have enormous amount of respect for him. Please don't mistake me. I use him all the time. I take good care of them. I have empathy towards him. But his job is to just deliver, period. That job, he does it very well. Make sure it comes to your door, delivers it, gets his signature, gets his signage done and goes away. So therefore, these are not two similar jobs. So therefore, go back, one size does not fit all. We got to do based on different types of businesses, different types of roles, different types of responsibilities.
That's right. That's right. I agree.
Thank you, Dr. Reddy. And Prashant. Asha, since we in the area of HR we specialize in getting policies and all that, should we start rethinking on compensation strategy also while moonlighting is becoming like a hot topic?
Okay, Monica, thanks for the question. And one of the hottest topic which is going around, and we've been seeing a lot of news on this, right? And agreeing with Dr. Reddy and Prashant on this, what I personally feel is gig economy is already here, right? And Gen Zs are literally fighting out ways to have more than one source of income while working with organization. We haven't heard this in our times, or probably in our parents' time, where my dad used to be a government servant, and that's it, done and dusted, that 30-40 years of it. And we've also been 15 years, I've been in companies and never thought even about moving out or having another job with me. So let me answer this in two parts quickly. Okay, if there is a conflict of interest, or probably a work associated to an organization's customer or their data, I feel it's illegal and surely unethical. Forget remuneration or the salary or the CTC, anything, right? What you're asking. Hard calls will have to be taken if there is a clash of interest against such employees, right? Wipro and Happiest Minds are a few examples that have taken this route, and there they have termed this as gone to an extent of calling it a cheating. But there's another perspective on this. If the employees, to be fair, to be empathetic, to understand the passion what these employees come with, right? If the employees pursue another job, which could be a hobby or a passion in their free time, or while doing that is earning also, and has probably no impact in the work and role in my organization, I would probably not do any changes over there, right? If there is a dip in performance, as Dr. Reddy told, then deal that as how you would deal with any employer who is underperforming, and take the defined route. So probably I would not even go near the remuneration part of it. I'd probably look at these two ways to deal with the moonlighting, and that's what we are doing at our organization also.
Thank you, Asha. William, can you give us a global perspective on moonlighting?
Well, most most have answered it. I'll just summarize a little bit of that. So long as it actually is not, it doesn't have any conflict of interest, it's fine, right? And it's done outside of your office hours, right? Plus, of course, if it's like what Asha mentioned, if it's your hobby, right? Well, like myself, I do some paintings on the side, right? But I do that after office hours, right? After I spend some of my hours at work, but I do this also in my workspace. I don't sell them yet. However, it's partly considered to be moonlighting, right? In some ways, let's say many years back, when I was still, well, I'm a returnee in Strive. I was part of this organization many years back and I rejoined them 3 years ago. So long as you actually ask permission to do something, let's say as a trainer, as a profession, you sometimes do, let's say, consulting or perhaps training on the side. So like what Prashant had already mentioned, so long as it's not a direct competitor, then go ahead, right? Because what you do outside of your working hours is private to us as employers, right? And that cuts across all, right? Especially now in a very remote situation we're in, you end up having a lot of, let's say, if you hire artists, graphic artists, or people who are in branding, people who are in marketing, they do have a lot of I rather call it side hustles rather than moonlighting. Side hustles are things that help you add up to what you currently have. Again, so long as it's outside of your working hours, if it eventually affects your performance, then of course, definitely we'll have to talk about it, because if an ex-employee is, let's say, a full-time employee in a certain company and then has, let's say, multiple side hustles, that ultimately is affecting already the performance of his performance together as when you track the performance of the entire team, then coaching steps in, right? To see into what can we do to address your concern. Perhaps if it's actually remuneration, then perhaps we'll look into that one. Or perhaps sometimes people go into moonlighting because they're bored with what they're doing, right? Perhaps it's a different, we need to look at perhaps your career pathing, your career progression. What else can you actually do for the organization? It's are the things you are doing in terms of moonlighting or side hustles, things that we could also offer you within the organization.
Thank you, William. Saying this, it brings me to the second round of questions. Are employers listening? Do they have the ears on the ground? Asha, just a simple question. I'll start with you, Asha. How can organizations build a mechanism to interpret the employee voice and how to act in a comprehensive manner? Also ascertain.
Again, very interesting question, Monica, and surely it's close to my heart because as a startup in my previous place, there was a lot of challenges where, like, we had to make sure that there was a. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. There was a lot of challenges where, like, we had to bridge the gap between the management and the young employees. And especially, like, there was a average age of 24, 25 years, right? So in my perspective, what I feel is listen to the employees, right? Create an ecosystem where the employee can voice out their opinions and probably also respond to them. And it is very difficult to scale it up. That is why the technology comes. You have your chatbots, like, you have your regular touch up with the employees technically. And if it's a global organization like what I am today, then it becomes a little more imperative that, like, we have to use technology and also make sure that the different tools, like, you can have your ERS, you can have your reward and recognition system, but all of them has to be talking to each other to make sure that, like, you have a comprehensive system where your employees can be created an ecosystem to be listened, right? It does not matter whether you are able to implement whatever your employees tell or not, right? Sometimes it's possible, sometimes it's not possible. But responding as to why you cannot implement, or why you should implement some of this suggestion is probably extremely important, so that you are giving a personal care for each one of them, right? At Subex, I come from Subex, so we look at employee NPS score, and this is done quarterly, very religiously, and this is goal set at leadership team. And we take this extremely important, and we are very transparent, and we make sure that we conduct this pulse surveys, which are camaraderie, credibility, fairness, pride, and respect around these areas, right? This further is drilled down to factors like celebration, development, growth, hiring, infra, manager engagement, and many more like that. We made this as a part of our KRA and OKR, which is periodically reviewed by top management and the entire leadership team. We take most of the critical areas that need immediate focus and set that as our goal, which is surely going to be measured monthly or quarterly or sometimes half yearly to see the progress. We probably also planned on a chatbot which periodically checks the morality of employees and will ask a fair question if they're alive, right? Being alive in the organization means, like, you still have your passion, you still have your energy, you still have, that goal, what goal you are working is actually attached to the final goal of the company, right? These are probably very, very important thing to integrate the employee voice in a comprehensive manner.
Thanks, Asha. I'm going to open this question to the three panelists here. Asha's given us a perspective, but now let me kind of tweak it a little more. Keeping hybrid environment in mind, how are we listening? How are the leaders listening to their employees? And how do you think it will work? How do you think we can make it much more futuristic?
Let me go first then, Monica.
Yes, Dr.
Technology, as much as hybrid is possible because of technology, today our ability to communicate with our people is also possible with technology. I think Asha alluded to it to a certain extent. She talked about blogs that are there. In our company, actually, our CEO is a young man called Krishna. It's called Krishna's Corner. Corner spelled as Korner. And there is a 24/7 monitoring of all the issues that are raised to him. One of the key things that we believe, and I strongly keep talking about it, is that if they, and Asha alluded to it to a certain extent, if there are issues raised by an employee, please make sure A, you acknowledge it. B, you've got to make sure, second thing is, that if you are going to be implementing it, not implementing it. As Asha said too, not everything they ask for can be implemented. But please tell them the reason why it cannot be implemented. And the ones which you commit with a date and make sure it happens. That's, I think, the best way in terms of keeping up the employee morale. They will, I've seen this even in the good old days when we did not have hybrid on a in-person meetings, etc. in, say, town halls. If people will raise their voice, after a while, it becomes a drab. They think, what good is this meeting? He comes and talks what he likes and goes away thereafter. If you truly believe in terms of building a greater organization, improving your organization's strengths from year to year, you've got to be responsive. That's what I've been saying. In the times we live, it becomes much more. So therefore, responsive organizations are the ones which listen to people. And technology, I won't get into this. I'm sure Prashant has a lot more knowledge than I have in terms of the technologies that are available in terms of interactivity, which is seamless, absolutely. You can faceless, you can do all these things. But the point is that that questions of feedback that comes to you has to be acted on either way.
Thank you, Dr. Reddy. William, Prashant?
I'll give an example. The way we actually did it for Strive. We had mostly the C's, the executive team, do a lot of coffee chats. We called it coffee chats, right? And they actually, at least during the pandemic, they actually met with a lot of our employees, intimate conversations of not more than 10 employees each, so that they get their voices heard, and of course, whatever. And it's facilitated by the HR team also. so that we could get the points across and start acting on that one, whether it be challenges in terms of technology, challenges because of, let's say, they're remotely working in a very far away place. What can we actually do for them, right? In a hybrid setup, we actually managed to bring that across, and now started bringing it down from, of course, from your C-level all the way to your VPs, to your AVPs. So they started doing all of those conversations amongst their team members and started engaging and starting getting feedback in terms of not just really asking, how are you, how have you been doing, but it allowed us to look into other things that we could work with. Let's say, some of the initiatives we started to put in, support groups for mental health was one, support groups for parent employees was one. And it was something that encouraged people to start coming in and sharing perhaps their stories or what they actually needed. And these are things that actually are done by employees themselves, right? Sometimes we get subject matter experts, doctors, nurses to talk about it. But most of the time, it's actually the employees, sometimes including myself. I started with the peer support for mental health, because that was something that everybody actually, I mean, in an Asian country, it's not yet, well, in some ways, it's not normal for us to talk to a psychologist or to a psychiatrist. It's not something that's well accepted, right? Unless you talk to, let's say, to our European, to American counterparts, where it's part of their benefits. So we started bringing in those two. Let's say we have EAP in India, we have our own EAP in the Philippines, and all others, so that these employees can actually reach out to them. Of course, we still need to market those internally, right? And that was one of the things we saw in a lot of those conversations that we need to put in place, because while the leadership, of course, when you say leadership is now, we also needed to look at what is it from the mental health side, or what we call self-care, that we can actually do, so that it manages how they do things in the, let's say, in a work from home setup most of the time. Yeah.
Thanks, William. Prashant?
Yeah, I'll just say, I think that the critical part of it is to establish feedback loops, right? And feedback loops are twofold. One is listening tours, or it could be proactive signal taking. Right? Proactive signal taking can be quarterly, right? You can basically say, hey, here are the surveys, every one of us, go respond to it. Some will respond, some will not respond, all of that, right? The other is listening tools, which is really, leadership is coming forward and saying, hey, every month, bi-weekly, depending on the bandwidth you have, the organization scale that you have, you can figure out how and what methods you want to deploy. The other thing that we have seen is empowering managers, right? I think managers play a very, very critical role in terms of getting the truth from the ground, right? And I think that's basically where I think I would bet, right? In future, more and more smaller teams, pizza teams with a manager, and manager driving that culture at that grassroots level. And then the combination of those rings is going to make what organization is going to look like.
Okay. Thank you, Prashant. I kind of have one question that came from the audience, but I'm going to rephrase it and bring it here. With remote working, the employers are micromanaging in some areas. Now, how can policies be built to incentivize trust and measure productivity? William, I'd like you to take the lead on this.
That's quite tricky to some extent, because we do have workforce management tools available, right? Some employers actually use that one, not to spy on employees, but really to understand where's productivity coming from, right? In a remote setup, what we have found out is that employees tend to work longer hours, right? It seemed to be that it was extended all the time. You work, let's say, you start work at 8 a.m. and then finish at either 8 p.m. or sometimes 12 midnight. But what do you do in the span of, let's say, 8 hours, 12 hours, or 15 hours? Is it because you're rushing to things, or perhaps you're just online and you're doing something else? Perhaps, of course, we don't know what that is. So with the advent of productivity tools, that's one way. But at the same time, to put that into practice, it's also pushing it back to the responsibility of the manager and the team leader to actually manage. What's the goal for the day? What's the goal for the week? And then, of course, check back at the end of the week. Where are we in terms of the goals? I'd like to say, at least from the company I work with, it's always performance driven. You could spend 6 hours in a day, so long as you complete your work, that's it, right? Because it is what is expected of you, right? If you manage to, let's say, because you felt uneasy, or perhaps you did not, you feel under the weather, you can't work around it. Either you take a leave, that's yours, that's your time off, and then you want to extend, then again, it's also your responsibility. So long as we have those boundaries in terms of objectives, KRAs, for the specific day, for specific week. And then, of course, a lot of check back. Check back doesn't mean I have to check with you hour on hour. I have to check on you, let's say, perhaps every other day or perhaps weekly, just to see where we are. I normally do that at the start, or actually at the start of the week or at the end of the week, right? We normally have our weekly team meetings, but of course, the weekly team meetings normally doesn't start with just what have we done last week and what are we going to do this week, right? So it always starts with how are you first, right? It's always how do we empathize with that? Sometimes, sometimes they're all our friends in Facebook or Instagram. We see their posts, and then of course we realize they may have posted something that is more personal. And then start asking, right? It may not be in the context of work, maybe in the context of a social media page. Just asking, how are you? Actually says, is a call to. Hey, I'm here. I'm listening. I saw something. You might need somebody to talk to. I may not be the right person, but perhaps you'd want to express a little bit of that one so that it doesn't actually expand elsewhere, right? So it can be through. Could be organizationally. Could be any tools you want to put into the system. Again, it's not to pry into our employees, but really just to ensure that. Because we also have our promise to our clients and to our customers. Right, and that's the reason we put all of this in place. And of course, a policy is built into it. What can be accessed, what cannot be accessed. Of course, you also have to look into your information security, and that's why all of us in a virtual space have a lot of our information security protocols in place, even our mobiles, right? And of course, a lot of that is brought about by how do you communicate it down from your C-level all the way to your manager, all the way to your team members, that they actually understand the reasons behind it, and then of course they actually write on into that one as well.
Thank you, William. Prashant, what do you think about micromanagement in hybrid environment, and how can we incentivize trust building and working in a much more collaborative environment?
I think this is where cloud will play a very significant role in terms of collaboration. You have shared directories, shared folders, have documents that individuals are working on, irrespective of their location, and you can see the progress in terms of what progress they are making in that piece of work. The important thing is digital exhaustion will happen if you micromanage. Right, because then you are actually instilling the sense of sort of absence and fear, right? Saying, hey, and if that's the thing, right, nobody will be hitting the off switch. And if that, think about it, then after hours work and workday span are still increasing, and it doesn't lead to the actual contribution that you want to do on that piece of work that has been allocated to you, or the role that you are taking up. So I think the key here is to use more collaborative tools on cloud, which basically spans through the geographies and time zones, and make sure that that's the way we allocate our work and track our progress in that work, right? And outside that time period, whatever employees want to do, it's up to their prerogative.
I think it brings back the whole conversation of having a framework given in the working environment of a hybrid situation. Asha, as Prashant and William was speaking, I was just thinking of this. people are in hybrid mode, and there's a lot of goodness also in it. But coming to when it comes to remote working, what happens is proximity bias is coming. People in the same city happen to work closely or in the same project. How do we manage this and make sure that these biases are not impacting the performance of the person end of the day?
Okay, so just I would probably use a jargon on this. So how we could probably establish a synchronous and asynchronous work, right? Probably that is what, Monica, we are coming to.
Yes.
Okay, great. So surely this is a difficult question, and surely Prashant and William have actually put in their points, and a little bit extension on that. As I told, this is again a difficult question, and there is no as such a rule book, and do not have a straight answer. And there are probably multiple approach or factors to consider, but there are certain areas where each approach has its advantages depending on the size of the company, the nature of the business, the kind of talent what you have, right? What we are trying to achieve and what is the best way to achieve is a key factor to be considered here. If the work requires, again I'm repeating, if the work requires innovation, collaboration for complex decision making, learning workshops, recognizing and probably also celebrating connections that requires emotional investment, these have to be done using the synchronous way, right? So you're all coming together, and if there are tasks that involve informing information sharing, self-paced learning, execution on a predefined set or a task which has already been decided by the management or by the individual, roles probably that requires less interruption, deep focus, creative work, right? The asynchronous model works, and for both, use of technology is must. Tools such as probably Teams, the Zoom, what we are using, Slack, we surely cannot imagine a world without these, right? Along with this, probably there comes a lot of disadvantage also, right? How many times have we not been interrupted, in a constant ping or a call on Teams while you're focusing on something critical, or probably you're taking a webinar or doing something very urgent, right? How many times you have wanted on a response, which I could have probably Monica, gone and gathered just by walking up to my colleague desk, right? Use of technology, budget, awareness, and changes in process and policies is key here. And time and again, we'll have to relook at it. And probably these are something which we will, have to go on reinventing. As I told initially, there is no rule book to these kind of questions.
Thank you, Asha. I have a question that's come from the audience. Tanmoy Karmakar from Calcutta is asking this. Dr. Reddy, I think you should take this question for us. He says, as you've discussed about virtual working and mixed work cultures, so as a manager in an entry-level leadership role, he is asking if we should always make use of office to promote return to work, or should we just stick to the hybrid mode and if there is no loss of production?
I think what has come to stay right now to our friend who is asking this question is hybrid will be there now as the new model. Work from home has been a big boom because of COVID-19. Even people like me were not very optimistic that will work, but it's worked wonders, absolutely. I am pleasantly surprised that I was wrong, and I'm delighted about it. So hybrid will continue to be there. And the hybrid mode at this point of time means that people will come to work for a certain amount of time, depending upon the role that they have, depending on the days that they have, etc. So therefore, the oneness, identity, vision, etc., all those are possible that they're coming in. Notwithstanding that, still what I keep joking around is that I went ahead and looked at what we are doing as a part of the employee engagement in the last 2 or 3 weeks. The emails come to me as the general emails and stuff. And I think Prashant raised it at some point in time, very early in the meeting, that right now the focus is more on health and well-being of our employees. And if you look at it's called the Synchrony engagement, Synchrony again playing on our name called Signed, is that every Wednesday we have a healthcare specialist talking on the hybrid mode. And last session was on pediatrics. The previous one was on breast cancer. The previous to that was on styling and branding. These are the type of things that go on. And I think Asha talked about celebrations. And that has also become very common with the hybrid mode, whether it's the Diwali or it was the Dashera, or it's the Children's Day or the Teacher's Day, all of them at this point in time. So I think there are the technology, as much as it's providing the hybrid part of it, it's also providing us an ability to use the same hybrid in making sure that oneness is developed between we don't even call them employees, our associates, and the management. Having said that, I think what will happen is, because the emphasis also was moonlighting, I just wanted to share one other thought of mine on moonlighting. Moonlighting will not stay for good. Let's look at what are the key foundational reasons why moonlighting is happening at this point of time. I think the reason for that is a sudden burst in terms of demand, and there are not enough of those good resources, good technical resources. And as a result of that, there are a number of companies saying that, look, can you do this piece first, and so on and so forth, not understanding that they're moonlighting. This will not be there forever. It will definitely change. And I talked about the VUCA world where technical jobs are being lost. Today morning, I think Amazon said 12,000 will be laid off. And that will happen. That's not good at all, but that's a fact of life. That's the world that we live in. As a result of that, what will happen as we move forward is there will be some amount of demand for high technical resources. And those high technical resources anyway can call themselves as consultants. Why do they want to go back into moonlighting part of it? They might as well actually demand 3 times, if not 5 times, what their hourly rates are at this point of time. So therefore, the moonlighting part of it is more the flavor of the season. I think the social media is a buzz with it. But I don't think, please, my request is don't overplay on it. It's not something which is going to break this industry for sure. What has come out well is the work from home is an amazing boom for this industry. And especially because I also have 2 women on screen at this point of time, I want to share that's the best thing that we have seen as organizations.
Yeah.
The ability to bring inclusivity, the ability to women to participate in the workforce is increasing considerably because of work from home. We give them the flexibility of hours, all that will work. Look at it from very positive perspective, rather than the small little aberrations that will be there, but I think we'll leave them apart. But sum total is the hybrid mode has come to stay. It will be the one which we will all work as we go forward for the betterment of industry, betterment of individuals.
Thank you very much, Dr. Reddy. We have no questions further, so unless you want to say something around the topic, we will close our webinar. Is that all right?
Sounds great.
Yeah. So thank you very much. At the onset, I'd like to place on record the sincere thanks to each of our speakers today. Dr. Reddy, thank you for bringing your perspective on technology, on flexibility. Prashant, it was really nice for you to bring 3 buckets that you brought in. One is the advantages of technology, its risks, flexibility, and collective well-being. Asha, thank you very much for talking about policies and bringing your expertise into this webinar. And William bringing global perspective and about the micromanaging of workforce in the hybrid environment. It was a great pleasure to listen to your thoughts and learn so much from it. All that you have shared this evening has worked as a starting point to resolve important issues in the areas inspired and has inspired many to take initiatives in the leadership style. Thank you to each one of you for taking time from your busy schedule to be our panelists for the evening. Your presence and your words helped magnify the topic of leadership challenge and the future of leadership. The highlights of this webinar were how leaders now need to look for new tools and mindsets, change mindsets to identify future-ready talent and to meet today and tomorrow's leadership challenges. Thank you all for your enlightening words that inspired so many people who joined and stuck to the webinar and did not drop off. Thank you, participants, for being here. And your conversation with us panelists has left a great impact. And thank you very much. Participants, thank you for joining. And you can get the video recorded version on LinkedIn. Thank you once again.
Thank you.